So I wanted to just share a brief word of encouragement to all of you this morning. So 7 years ago, I conducted the very first Vow Renewal Marriage Reunion service here. And as Jesse mentioned, we were supposed to be here for 6 months maybe, and the way things worked out, we ended up staying. And the pastor who was here was taking a sabbatical because his in-laws were sick, and for whatever reason he didn't come back, and so they were left with me. And well, we've noticed changes, and even in the last 7 years, with regards to the marriage reunion and weddings. We used to do hundreds of weddings every year. We probably do about 60, 70, 80 maybe. There's a number of reasons for that. Number one, we wanted to make weddings more personal. At one point, we were processing 7, 10 weddings a day, and that was a very impersonal thing. People were lined up waiting for their turn, and I personally didn't like that at all because that's somebody's special day, and you want to give them plenty of time. So we've kind of pulled back. We hardly advertise at all with regards to weddings, most of the people we marry here, probably most of you here, got married in this church because a relative in the past did as well. So you're following a family tradition. But family traditions are changing. You know, people are not following that kind of pattern. And I just noticed a statistic came up the other day that in 2025, this year, they're predicting that 4% of the population will get married. Last year, just last year, it was 7%. And so things are changing. Society's changing, sadly. And people are choosing to live together rather than actually get married, and especially in a place like this. And so we have overtly Christian weddings because we're a Christian church. We're an evangelical Christian church. And so that's what we do here. So in the face of societal changes, I want to congratulate you all for being here, and for those of you who filled in the form to renew your vow and get your little packet. They're doing it today. Congratulations for doing that. I think it's an important thing that you do. Being born in Britain, I've studied a particular person for many, many years and discovered that I've got a few things in common with this particular guy. His name was Winston Churchill. Churchill was one of the greatest statesmen, not only in Britain, but I think personally in the world in the last 100 years. He also was a wonderful orator. If you heard him speak in the House of Commons in Britain, just an amazing way to move people. But I discovered a few things I have in common with Churchill, and so if any of this offends you, I'm sorry. But I do like an occasional cigar, once in a blue moon. Winston Churchill smoked 10 a day. I can't even imagine that. I mean, seriously. I like the occasional glass of scotch. I don't actually like scotch, but I'm Scottish and they force me to drink it. It's part of the gross national product. I've got to help. He drank 3 glasses a day and then champagne in the afternoon and brandy at night time. How he functioned, I have no idea. And he lived to be 93, I think it was. So, I mean, just amazing. But another thing I have in common, and those of you who come to this church know this, that I do my best research in the bath. I have a 2-hour bath every night, and that's where I study and write things down and watch stuff on YouTube and all that kind of things to get inspiration. Churchill did most of his speech writing in the bath, with his secretary outside the bathroom door taking notes. And occasionally Winston would forget who was out there and decide to walk out the door. I don't do that, do I? No. But the most important thing I have in common with Winston Churchill is when he declared this. He said, "My most brilliant achievement was my ability to be able to persuade my wife to marry me." That's the one I have in common with Churchill, with her, with Jessie. Some anonymous person, not Churchill, said this: a good relationship is where each partner suspects that they got the better deal. How many of you got the better deal? You better put your hands up, guys. We call this thing marriage reunion and vow renewal. But I want to just mention the title of this brief message, and that is simply how to keep your relationship fresh. It's not just about renewal. It's not just about making a statement once a year or every 5 years or 10 or whatever else. The possibility is there that you can have that refreshing, that renewal of your relationship. Now, this message applies not just to married couples, but to any of our relationships. You can have a renewed or refreshed relationship every day, every single day, if you choose. You know, someone said life is a sequence of choices, and so it is, good and bad. We are a product of all the choices that we make. So my encouragement to you this morning is choose to keep your relationship fresh. I've just lost the internet. All right. There we go. So I wanted to say just a couple of things. To do that, we need to have an understanding of the things that really make it work. And one of the first things that makes a relationship work is commitment. You've got to be committed to that relationship. I was a rugby player when I was younger, and sometimes not that young, because I went on and on and on, played. And all my injuries and problems are basically a product of tackling people twice my size. And so that's why I get knee problems and all that kind of stuff. But what I remember the coaches telling me is that if you don't commit yourself to a tackle, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. And so you've got to commit yourself to something. And if you don't commit yourself to your relationship, it's not going to work. You can't have a half-hearted aspect of a relationship. It just doesn't work that way. We've got to make sure that we are committed to each other. Second thing is we need to be clear with each other. Clarity is a wonderful thing. And what I mean by that is you need to be clear about the health or the strength of your relationship and be honest about it. What needs to be improved? What needs to be tweaked? What are we not doing that we did before? We need to be clear. 7 years ago I mentioned this, that marriage is basically a choice of what button you press. Now let me tell you what buttons I mean. Button A is the blessing button. And what I mean by that is, if you've been married any length of time, you should know what your spouse really likes. What would make them happy. And that could be a whole range of things. Some people like spontaneous gifts. Some like planned events. Some like this, that, the next thing. That's button A, the blessing button. And you have a choice. You can press that if you want. But there's a button B. And the button B is the destruct button. And by this time in your relationship, you should know all the things that would really, really annoy your spouse, your wife, your husband, your buddy. You know what to really, get under their skin. And again, life is a sequence of choices. So you choose every day, what button am I going to press? Am I going to press the blessing button? Or am I going to press the destruct button? And the choice is yours. But clarity means you got to know. You got to talk to your spouse and say, or if you don't know, say, do you really like it when I turn up with Chinese food that you never ordered? Do you like that? Do you like flowers? Do you like me occasionally to, clean your car or whatever it is? You got to know what these things are. And a lot of people, I've done a lot of counseling over the years. Some couples never get to that point. When I ask them, what is it really blesses you about your spouse? It's like, oh, what is it that she does or he does that makes you feel happy, contented, safe, secure, appreciated, valued? Folks, if you don't know, ask. Find out. What is it that really floats your boat? And what is it that chaps your hide? Is that too Texan? I don't know. You say it up here. Choose to be committed to each other. Choose to be clear with each other. Third thing, choose to be compassionate. Colossians 3:12, Paul says this. He says, so as those who have been chosen of God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion. Now, I'm not going to bore you with Greek, but that word there is a really powerful word, put on. Now, when that pops up, when you see that, the first thing you ought to realize is it's not something that happens. It's not an automatic. Paul says, put it on. Just like you would get up in the morning, you go through your wardrobe, and you would choose what clothes to wear for that day. You would choose what to put on for that particular day. Now, normally Jesse and I try to dress to bless each other, to, approve of what we're wearing. I'll put this on, she'll go, I like that, or don't like that, and vice versa. Well, I don't say that to her because that would be a problem. But but you know what I'm saying. So we do that. We put on compassion. Now, we can choose not to do that. We can choose to have a different attitude towards our friends or spouse. But Paul says here, put it on. It's an act of your will to put on compassion. I'm so glad that the Bible says that God is a compassionate and gracious God who's slow to anger and abounding in love and faithfulness. And that's what Paul's getting at, that just like God is a compassionate God, we need to be compassionate to each other with all of our faults and failings. And then lastly, we need to choose to commend each other. I told some of you here that come to this church that I was at a conference many years ago with a whole bunch of high-powered evangelical leaders in Atlanta or somewhere. And all guys, and there was a guy speaking who was a sports star, but I can't remember who he was. But he had a great message. And he talked about fatherhood, and he talked about commending your kids. Words of approbation. At the end of the service, he said, I want to pray for men who are here whose father never did that, never commended them. You're a great kid, attaboy, you're going to succeed, you're going to do great things. None of that. Now remember, these are all major evangelical leaders. And by the time he did the altar call, more than 3/4 of the entire 350 people were down the front. These are major Christian leaders who never heard a word of commendation from their dad. Isn't that sad? Sometimes that happens in marriages. Guys, when was the last time you said to your wife, honey, that was a fabulous meal, thanks so much. Appreciate you the way you dress. How many women in here have said to their husbands, thank you so much for working so hard to keep the family going? Or words to that effect. You get where I'm coming from? Words of commendation. But you know what? Here's the sad thing. There's some people who spend more time with another C word called criticism than commendation. They just like to criticize everything. And those people who criticize find it very hard to commend. If you're complaining about everything, then you find there's not much room in your heart to commend that same person for something they did positively. There was a book that came out years ago called The 1 Minute Manager by a guy called Ken Blanchard. And it basically said, if you're working with an employee, then don't just ream them for something they did bad. Find something positive that they've done. And go to them and say, John, thank you so much for being coming here faithfully and turning up on time every single time and staying later, and so on and so forth. Well done. However, can I talk to you about this? Do we do that? Or do we just reel in with criticism if we don't like something? That can destroy a relationship, even a good marriage that's been going for a long time. So make sure that you do a whole lot more commending than you do criticizing, right? And that will build up your relationship with each other. Proverbs 31 is the chapter that Solomon dedicated to writing about what a godly wife should look like. Some of you have read it. He says, an excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. You know what Billy Sunday, the famous evangelist back in the 1900s, said? He said this. He said, try praising your wife, even if it does frighten her at first. Go in gently. So the question is, do we do that? Do we commend each other? And do we commend each other in front of other people? It's one thing telling your wife in private or your husband in private, honey, I think you're great, great food, great, you look fabulous. Try doing it in front of your friends. There's nothing that will build up your spouse more than hearing you say that in front of other people. Plus, it keeps your marriage healthy. There was a British couple back in the day. They were celebrating their 75th wedding anniversary, 75 years together. The BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, went to interview them. And so they asked the old guy, they said, so, 75 years, that's amazing. So let me ask you this. What's the secret? What's the secret of being married so long? This is what the old guy said. He said, well, young fella, here's what we did when we got married at first. We started a game. And the game was who could outlove and outgive each other. And the reporter said, well, who won? And he said, I don't know, we haven't finished playing yet. How about that? How about doesn't matter how long you've been married. You've been married 11 years. Some been married a couple of years, right? Some married 70, 69 years. The game's not up. The game's still playing. Make it that game that you outlove and outgive each other. And that's a way to keep your marriage healthy. Clarity, commitment, compassion, commendation. We need all of that to keep our marriage fresh and our relationships fresh. So I would encourage you to visit these qualities every single day and to renew your relationships. Keep them fresh, just as you're going to do it this morning. So